Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Clarita Janu Prameswari from Janu. I'm a student of Universitas Negeri Semarang, majoring in Physics class 5C. Here I will present the result of my research entitled The Effectiveness with Virtual Physics Learning Class with Google Classroom for Universitas Negeri Semarang Physics Student during COVID-19 pandemic. Just go straight to the abstract. A result of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has not only affected the economy, but also of education. This pandemic required online learning. Students are asked to study at home, so the education need to use effective learning media. The focus of this research is the virtual physics learning process assisted by learning media in the form of Google Classroom for physics students at Universitas Negeri Semarang during the COVID-19 pandemic. This study aims to determine the effectiveness of online physics learning assisted by Google Classroom. The type of research used is quantitative descriptive with online survey methods. Data collection was done by distributing questionnaires to 23 Universitas Negeri Semarang physics students. In the form of Google Form and the analysis using a Likert scale. The result of this analysis state the physics learning based on virtual class assisted by Google Classroom during COVID-19 pandemic is effectively applied in current learning. This can be seen from the result of the average survey scale that had been distributed, namely 0.78, and the result of interview about physics student outcome increased during online learning use Google Classroom learning media. The COVID-19 pandemic that occurred took the country almost weakness all fields, especially in health, economy, social, including in the field of education. To reduce the spread of COVID-19, the government, the President of Indonesia, mandated that all students were prohibited from carrying out the face-to-face or conventional learning process and were ordered to study online from home or virtual class. What is virtual class? Virtual class, or often called online learning, is learning that is carried out without face-to-face contact with the teacher or student-teacher. Teacher can provide teaching materials in digital content that can be accessed by students via the internet anytime and anywhere, so that students can learn independently. Online learning is also very much needed in the era of Industrial Revolution 4.0. The use of Android technology has a big impact in achieving distance learning goals. For example, such as virtual laboratories, virtual classes using WhatsApp group, Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom, and Edmodo, and can even be used via social media such as Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Physics learning is learning that describe and explain natural natural law events with pictures of human thought. Online learning in basic lessons need more attention. Most students think basic learning is not easy to understand. Therefore, it is necessary to have improved learning media in this application. One of the learning media that can be used by teacher is Google Classroom. Google Classroom is one of the learning media that can be used in online learning. Google Classroom is an online learning method that is intended to improve the quality of education to overcome the learning process which is limited by the availability of classrooms. In previous research conducted by Mustaqim with the title The Effectiveness of Online Learning Using Online Media During COVID-19 Pandemic in Mathematics subject. In this study, it is said that learning innovation carried out by mathematics teacher using online learning media can help students during the learning process. With the result, 23.3% said it was very effective and 46.7% said it was effective to use the online learning media. What is formulation of the problem? The formulation of the problem in this study is online basic learning or virtual class assisted by Google Classroom learning media effective used by Universitas Negeri Semarang basic students? Currently, the Google Classroom application has been widely used in learning as a support in learning activities and a form of support for current technological advance. The Google Classroom application is very easy to use in learning activities. The Google Classroom application can be downloaded for free on Android and iOS-based device. Research purpose. Through online basic learning use Google Classroom, the aims to this study was to determine the effectiveness of learning basic virtual classes assisted by Google Classroom learning media for basic students during the COVID-19 pandemic. What research methodology? Time and location of research. When the result took place in January 20 in Sekarang District, Gunung Bati Regency, Central Java. This study using a survey method which was conducted online. This population in this study were all Universitas Negeri Semarang basic student and the sample used was 23 students of UNES class 2019 and 2018 from various classes. That collection technique were carried out by distributing questionnaires online in the form of Google Form to 23 UNES basic students. The data analysis used was describe quantitative analysis, with result the effectiveness criteria of the quantitative data from the research questionnaire instrument. Describe analysis of the data in this study is intended to describe the determinant of effectiveness of learning using Google Classroom as a learning medium during the pandemic. The data obtained were the analysis and calculate of the average using a Likert scale. The result and discussion. The author has distributed a survey questionnaire to the 2018 and 2019. UNES physics students from several random group of 23 respondents. You can see this image. From the above, it can be seen that respondents from various groups, both from basic education and pure basic education. Students fill out the 7 questions given in a questionnaire about virtual basic learning. Question 1. Using Google Classroom online allows me to complete basic tasks more easily. Question 2. Google Classroom improve my basic learning skill when study at home because the material from the teacher is obtained more easily. Question 3. The Google Classroom application is very useful in learning basic, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Question 4. The appearance of Google Classroom is very clear and easy to understand, making it easier for us to use it. Question 5. Google Classroom is easy to use, help with basic learning virtual class. Question 6. Google Classroom is easy to access to basic material, easier to get and learn. Question 7. Virtual basic learning with the help of Google Classroom is efficient to use during the COVID pandemic. After getting the result of the response from basic students, the data were analyzed using Microsoft Word. The following use were obtained. This table question analysis. It was found that mean 0.77 or around 0.78 or 78% in the high category or level. This shows that virtual class basic learning assisted by Google Classroom is feasible because the use of Google Classroom itself is easy to access, practical and efficient for use by basic students of UNES during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the implementation of Google Classroom online, it makes it possible to complete basic tasks more easily, with 83% of the interpretation being obtained in the high category. This shows that with the help of Google Classroom, virtual basic learning, which is carried out during the COVID-19 pandemic, will make it easier for students to do basic assignment. The implementation of Google Classroom can improve the ability to learn basic when studying at home because the material from the teacher is obtained in an easier way. Interpretation obtained as much 72% in the medium category, where this shows that using only Google Classroom is not easy to be able to improve learning ability because students are less interested or less motivated in learning existing material, even taught material. The implementation of Google Classroom application is very useful in learning basic, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Interpretation is in the high category, namely 79%. This shows that using Google Classroom, respondents on average agree that a Google Classroom application is useful in the learning basic during COVID-19 pandemic. The implementation of the Google Classroom display is very clear and easy to understand, making it easier for us to use it to get response from students in the high category, namely 79%. This shows that Google Classroom is feasible to use in basic learning virtual sport by its clear appearance and easy to understand. The implementation of Google Classroom is easy to use, helping to have a basic learning virtual class and get a friend's response from students of 76% in the high category. This confirms that Google Classroom is easy to use when virtual physical learning takes place. In the implementation of Google Classroom, it is easily to access to the basic material are easily to obtain the learning to get 80% interpretation. Instead, the existence of Google Classroom makes it easier for students to access basic material so that they are easily obtained the study easily. The implementation of virtual basic learning with use help of Google Classroom is efficient to use when the COVID-19 pandemic get implementation in with the medium category, namely 72% with respondents who strongly agree, 12.3% agree, 22.5% disagree, 20.8%, and only 4.4% disagree. This said that the average student agree that learning basic virtual with the help of Google Classroom is effective when used during COVID-19 pandemic. This indicates that with the help of learning media, Google Classroom is quite effective in learning basic virtual. This research can show how useful learning media, especially Google Classroom, on basic material that is done virtual and online. The result of study were conducted by author by means of interview conducted by several honest basic students. However, there are some students whose grades have dropped. This is because students do not understand the material well and cannot do the question correctly, and do not provide explain of the material, so the students do not understand the material well. When students are able to make good use of learning media, are able to understand the material well, it is facilitated in storing documents such as material and assignments sent via Google Classroom. In addition, students are facilitated to obtain announcements given by educators quickly so that they become effective and efficient in terms of time. From several survey results in the form of a questionnaire, student learning outcome during online learning, and with reference to previous studies that learning basic conduct online with the help of Google Classroom during the COVID-19 pandemic is effective for educators or lecturers to apply in teaching. In conclusion, the result of the questionnaire analysis show that the average score interpretation 78% in the high category. This shows that basic learning in the virtual class with the help of Google Classroom learning media is effective during the COVID-19 pandemic. By using Google Classroom learning media, students are facilitated in the understanding the basic material provided by the lecturer. This can be seen from the learning outcomes of basic students conducted by interview by several basic students during online learning after using Google Classroom increased although not significantly. I can thank you very much for your attention, and the last I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.